All right, here we go. I'm going to play devil's advocate off the top because I believe that Caleb believes, and we went over this in our 3:45 a.m. Production meeting that we do each and every day. I believe that Caleb believes that Josh Heupel is the better coach. And I'll go ahead and tell you that I think Josh Heupel is the better coach as well. But we are going to discuss that right now. Brought to you in part by City Heating and Air Conditioning. I stopped by and said hello to those guys, and it was awesome. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost tens of thousands. You may just need a part or some coolant, and you'll be taken care of. They're awesome. That is City Heating and Air Conditioning. Okay, so here I go. Mark Stoops is a better coach than Josh Heupel. And I swear, if you cut this in the very beginning so you don't have my disclaimer, I'm going to kill you, Caleb. Mark Stoops is a better coach than Josh Heupel, playing slightly contrarian, because he gets more with less than Josh Heupel. He hasn't had superstar players for the most part. Will Levis notwithstanding. I mean, I know you don't like him particularly, but that for Kentucky is a very, very good quarterback, right? I mean, they would take Will Levis every single year if they could get that type of talent at Kentucky. They've had a Randall Cobb who is fantastic, but I would really have to rack my brain to come up with other superstar athletes that they have had. So he comes up and he wins more and gets more out of less. Tell me that I'm right or wrong. That's one of the reasons Mark Stoops is a better coach than Josh Heupel, theoretically.
Dave, I wasn't going to fight you too hard on that because remember, I was the one who proposed this, and I wouldn't have proposed this if I didn't really believe in Mark Stoops as a head coach. And so,
well, I misunderstood you in the 3:45 a.m. So you got to take the.
Well, no, I think Josh Heupel is a better ball coach. Let me be clear what I mean by that. If you have two coaches preparing for a game, I trust Josh Heupel more than Mark Stoops as a game planner for Saturday. I think Josh Heupel is. I don't think there's a better game planner in the country than Josh Heupel. Really, do you, Dave? I think maybe Nick Saban, but like Josh Heupel's is at the top, right, as far as game planning.
Oh boy, I would have been all on board if not for that Florida game. I just didn't. I didn't think a lot of that. I got to not. I got to give. If he was an A+ before, he's got to be a flat A now. To me,
see, me and you break on that. I don't blame him at all for the Florida game. The game planning, I blame him in certain ways, but not. I don't think game planning was the issue.
Well, it was Mays that was the issue, but it's a little bit, in my opinion, it's a little bit Heupel, and then it was a little bit Heupel in the fourth downs for Alabama. But I know you and I disagree with that, so I don't want to belabor the point. Let me try to make another argument.
Well, I was going to
go ahead.
Split with the Stoops, because while I think Heupel's a better ball guy, I do think Mark Stoops is a better CEO. Where you talk about him game planning, I think Mark Stoops usually hires the right coordinators. And he knows defense well, and he hires the right coordinators to run the offense as best as they can.
Is CEO part of managing NIL and recruiting?
Now it is, yes.
Okay. I would actually take, it's funny, we're disagreeing on the things that I thought we would have to kind of poke each other on. I actually think that Josh Heupel is a better CEO than Mark Stoops. So we basically disagree on everything except for the premise, which is that Josh Heupel's a better coach. But I'm going to go on. Josh Heupel could not have had the success that Mark Stoops has had at Kentucky, which is an incredibly difficult place to play. Listen, it would be a difficult place to win, not place to play. It would be a difficult place to win if they were in Conference USA because of the lack of recruiting talent. But they're not. They're in the SEC, but he started 2-10, then 5-7, 5-7, 7-6, 7-6, 10-3, 8-5, 5-6, 10-3, 7-6, 5-2. So that's 2 10-win seasons. I do not believe that Josh Heupel could have done that in that same period of time at Kentucky. You?
I'm going to say he could have. And the reason I'm going to say he could have is because I saw what let's not forget how Josh Heupel had his career resurgence. He was fired by Oklahoma, goes to Utah State to become offensive coordinator for a year. Barry Odom takes over Missouri and takes, to his credit, the shot in the dark to bring Josh Heupel in when nobody wanted Josh Heupel as an offensive coordinator. And by the way, nobody wanted the Missouri job. Remember how, I know you hate it in general, Dave, but remember how bad of a job specifically Missouri was in 2015? Because that was after the whole Mizzou protest stuff in 2014 where they were going to refuse to play the season.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yes. Missouri was it was the worst job in football. Josh Heupel's offensive coaching got them to a bowl game in his second year. By himself, with Drew Lock, Josh Heupel coaching the offense, single-handedly willed them to a 7-6 record in a bowl game, which got him his job at UCF. I think if he could do that at Missouri just as an offensive assistant, I think he could do that at Kentucky as a head coach with 10 wins, particularly when, as you and I know, over the past 8 or 9 years, the East has had a couple years where it's really, really bad. Now, this is to say that, look, that doesn't mean that this isn't maximizing what's possible at Kentucky. It is. Mark Stoops is maximizing what can be done at Kentucky. I just think Josh Heupel would have been able to do it too. My CEO issue, I disagree with you about Heupel managing NIL and recruiting well. You and I both know he was behind NIL opening up the checkbook for Dante Thornton. That's wasted everybody's money. Whoever you got. And I mean, because talent evaluation is part of being a CEO. And
he also has more money to play with. He's the guy who is able to go in and pick 10 toys for his kids, and he hopes that his kids like 2 or 3. Whereas Mark Stoops is the guy, because he doesn't have as much NIL money in football, is the guy that goes in and picks 4 or 5 toys for his kids and hopes for 2 or 3. Now,
by now he's GMing like the Mets. There.
Okay, but Colton, I have no idea what that means. Colton Ditmore said, would Stoops have taken Hooker and the team to where they want? So I'm going to take my devil's advocate hat and lay it down. No, I don't think Mark Stoops would have taken Hendon Hooker and the Vols last year to a 10-win season. So at the end of the day, even though I play devil's advocate for the fun of it, I think Josh Heupel is the better coach. But I think that if you don't consider Mark Stoops as one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the SEC, considering his challenges at Kentucky, then you're selling him short. So where would you put him? Saban's better. Smart's better. We both think Heupel's better. I know we both think Brian Kelly is better. After that, who is a better football coach in the SEC other than Mark Stoops?
I'm not so sure Brian Kelly is better.
That stuns me. Well, let's not get caught up on Brian Kelly.
Also with Smart. Okay, I think that. Look, I have Stoops in my top 3 with Heupel and Saban, and right now Stoops. When you throw in the CEO side, I mean,
you got to have Smart in there.
Look, I think Kirby Smart went to the second easiest job in America, and I think it's just an indictment on previous coaches that they didn't do what Kirby Smart did.
No, Saban or Smart are 1, 2.
I mean, I think Georgia's a very easy place to win it. And it's easier now than it even was under Rick because the talent is only growing in Georgia.
Yeah, but you have more competition, and the Atlanta kids don't have any allegiance to Georgia. So I disagree with you there. I'm with you on I know what you're getting at, the LSU effect. And I'm with you with the LSU effect. That is very true. I don't think.
What about those rural Georgia kids, though? The talent doesn't just stay in Atlanta. I mean, that's the South Georgia area, like where Marcus Callaway.
Yeah, below the Nat line is what it's called. You know, when you drive south and the Nats start hitting your windshield.
Oh, okay.
That's below the Nat line. They get all those kids. Okay, so when you get about 50 miles south of Georgia, they get all those kids, and there's a lot of good ones. So yes, that part of the state is way overlooked. Below the Nat line, those guys are Georgia people. But I can tell you that going to camps in the Atlanta area, you didn't see a lot of Georgia license plates. You didn't see a lot of Georgia gear and that sort of thing. So I don't think there is that innate fandom. And the other reason is because in Atlanta specifically, below the Nat line, you're right. Around Athens, you're right, but there's not a lot of kids out of Athens. But with Atlanta, listen, there are two different radio stations, okay, in Atlanta, and one program specifically for the pros because they think that's the way to go, and the other one is more college. But they're not like us, 60 to 70% one team. They're all across the board. So they could be as apt to talk Michigan this afternoon on their afternoon show and the troubles they're having as Georgia. So I don't think there's that inherent tie. Colton says, what would Stoops do at Georgia during the same time frame as Kirby? I think he'd be Ray Goff. He'd be drunken Ray Goff.
He would not be Ray Goff. No, he would not. He at least give him Mark Richt.
Okay, Jim. No, he wouldn't win 10. He wouldn't average 10 games a year.
I think so. So.
I disagree. Okay, I would go Donnan. I'll give you Donnan. No, can we settle on Donnan?
I think he'd be better than Rick. I don't know if he'd do what Smart does. I think he'd be better than Rick. I do. I think Mark Stoops is a national title caliber coach at the right school. I do. If you put him at the right school, he can win a national title. He's at the worst job in America.
Yeah, but I don't know that. I have not seen him be at that job. I have seen him pass on other jobs. So I think he has a little bit of insecurity about making that move.
Or he wants, or
maybe Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. I mean, he's Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, basically.
And Kirk Ferentz, I think Kirk Ferentz time has passed him by at this point. But I think I think Mark Stoops is a little more ahead of the curve than Kirk Ferentz. I think Mark Stoops is thinking, here's why I think he's turned down other jobs. The playoff is expanding to 12 teams in a year. You have job security at Kentucky. And you've talked to me about this, Dave, before. How much stress and pressure are a lot of coaches under? Because, look, if they, the minute the hot seat happens, things are spiraling. And it's not just, you're paid well, but you got to move your family. You're responsible for assistants' livelihoods. Like, there's a lot of pressure. Why go for all of that when you're at a very good situation in Kentucky right now? No one's firing you. Heck, if you keep doing what you're doing, they'll build a statue to you in the future. And honestly, maybe with the 12-team playoff coming, Kentucky could maybe squeak in every now and then.
Travis says he's going to Michigan State. I hadn't thought about that. That would be a great hire by the Spartans.
That'd be dumb for Mark Stoops to go there.
I don't know. He'd have a little bit more money to play with, but so would the rest of the conference. I think Jim Harbaugh is gone after this year, so I want to factor that in to my thinking.
Oh, no, he's not. He didn't say Michigan. He said Michigan State.
Right, but I think Harbaugh is gone. So you don't have Jim Harbaugh, one of the best coaches in the world, to beat every year.
See, I think Michigan should look into hiring him if Jim Harbaugh goes. I think he'd be great at Michigan.
Ooh, I think that would be. I think that would be a little bit of a reach.